welcome back. Thank you for joining us for the October Weekly Astro Update. We're back today bringing you the astrology for the week of the 23rd to the 30th of October. And I'm Sonia from Celestial Astrology, and I'm here joined by Shawna. Thank you so much for joining us, Shawna. Would you like to remind everybody where they can find you?
Thanks for having me back again. smartastro.com, same handle on Twitter and Instagram, and Substack.
Brilliant. And we're both available for astrology readings. If you like the way either of us talk about astrology or do our astrology, then please do come and find us, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts or opinions or any feedback. So we'll go straight into it. We're looking from the 23rd. So we're looking from Mars trine Venus, Venus square Saturn, Mercury opposite Uranus on the 30th, and then going to the 31st, Mercury trine Neptune. So we've just got those 4 aspects left for the last of October. And we look at the week ahead from the 23rd to the 30th of October. So on the 28th, these are the 3 that I've chosen. The Mercury trine Neptune happens on the 31st, which is just outside of the week that we're covering. So on the 28th, we've got Mars trining Neptune, and of course, Neptune's still retrograde in Pisces. On the 28th, we've got Venus square Saturn, and Saturn's still retrograde in Pisces. So we've got some Pisces energy coming through, which we haven't seen a lot of this month. And then on the 30th, Mercury's opposite Uranus retrograde. So we've got some outer planets coming into the story this week, I feel. What do you think, Shawna?
Yeah, I feel like October ended up being a much busier month than we thought it might have been. But yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah. Okay, let's get right into it. We've got Neptune trining Mars on the 28th of October.
So I think with Neptune trining Mars, Neptune has the upper hand here in the superior trine. I feel like with Mars, the end of its Cancer journey, or at least on the first leg, hopefully we've when I think of Neptune, it's delusion, yes, fogginess, but illusion and discovery. Discovery, I think, is my favorite word for Neptune. Because even though it can kind of cloud things, once that fog kind of dissipates, once the sun shines on it, warms it up, that it really allows you to see your next steps and find your way forward. And I feel like during this first leg, this first trip through Cancer, Mars had some hard lessons, but found some empowerment toward the end before it steps into Leo. And I think Neptune is going to help, if anything, give a little bit of a confidence, maybe, to Mars as it moves forward, finding a way to find the flow, maybe, and move past that stagnant water and find the energy boost it needs to take those next steps and move ahead.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. When I was looking, I saw that Mars is conjunct the fixed star Procyon, which is the chief star of the constellation Canis Minor, the lesser dog, a star of heat and fire. So this is very comfortable for Mars. It brings restlessness. It's giving chase of some kind, like a dog ready to play in a park. It's got courage and daring and executive capacity. So a dog that's wanting a puzzle. You've hidden the toy somewhere, and it's willing to play and look harder for it. And it says it brings a caution: avoid overestimation and aggression, which Mars in Cancer is grounded a little bit from the aggression. You can go far with discipline and staying focused. So it is like a word of warning there. But I think with Neptune and Cancer and all that watery energy, that's kind of baked in with that astrology anyway. And I was looking at the dates for this as well. Their conjunction was 28 Pisces on the 29th of April, 2024. So this is the first trine, because of course Mars moves a lot slower. So they had their opening square on the 3rd of September from Gemini, and this then is the first trine. So whatever the opening square was showing, this is a time bringing a little bit of ease. And I think I spoke with Janessa last month about Oprah speaking about, rather than seeking to be happy as an end state that we all can sometimes try to work towards, to see happiness as a fleeting state that visits us quite regularly, maybe more regularly than we actually realize, but that it's fleeting. It's a momentary thing that we can notice and bring our attention to noticing those smaller moments, and that we can strive just to be happier. And if we strive to create those minor, smaller adjustments that will make us slightly happier, rather than seek that big happy ever after ending somehow and assume that that's an end goal and an end result. So this is kind of like an insight and a moment where we've got a chance, again, because this is of the nature of Jupiter, these trines, there's an ease here, but also an opportunity to get some insight into how it's possible to create that for ourselves, to maybe see where there's opportunities to create a little bit of happier, those little micro adjustments that could just make our lives a little bit easier, bring a little bit of happiness. If there's something that's causing you friction or anxiety, is it possible to remove it or to change it in some way to just put a little bit less stress on yourself? You might not be able to totally solve the problem, but is there somebody who can help you or support you that you're not reaching out to? And why not just think about what's stopping you, maybe, and just how, if you were a friend talking to yourself about those adjustments that might be necessary in your life, what would you recommend to yourself as a friend of the adjustments? What can you see? Quite often it's easy, say with another friend, that you're like looking through a window. It's very easy when you're talking to somebody to look through a window at their life and see what they're doing wrong and to judge them, but you're not aware of everything. But if you were looking through a window at your life, what would you see? And what judgments might you cast? And where could you see that those adjustments could be made? And the archetype, I think I said when they were together in conjunction, that Mars is kind of dissolved by Neptune. So he's stripped of all his armor and all the things that he hides behind, like the armor and the shield and the sword. They're all his accoutrements, like the points of
There's a facade.
yeah. But what's the essence of Mars when everything's stripped back by Neptune? Everything's kind of revealed, and what's the essence and what is he fighting for? And I think his journey through Cancer is very much about him learning that, what does he want to fight for? What is it all about? You can't just keep fighting blindly, just going around shouting your mouth off at anybody who annoys you. It's better to focus about what's important to you and what are you really willing to fight for, and where are you just wasting your energy, like going into battle with the local council or the government or this or that, or the traffic warden, or whoever's annoyed you all the time. Is it worth all of that, or is it really worth fighting for one thing that's really important to you? And I think that's what Mars is experiencing here, this dissolving of all these things that he's gathered around him to the real essence. And this trine might bring an insight to that.
Yeah, it's almost like Mars has been, Mars is a land animal and had to figure out how to survive while swimming, right? None of the usual tactics work. You have to decide where to focus your energy in order to stay afloat. Yeah. And instead of just nitpicking here and there with each little bitty argument.
Yeah. I think as you grow older, you learn you can't fight every battle. Some just aren't worth fighting.
Right.
But yeah, Neptune's very comfortable in water, so he's just sort of like looking on this struggle. Mars will get weighed down if he keeps his sword and his shield and tries to keep that all in the water. He's going to sink, so he has to leave them on the land and get through the water on his own. He is stripped back there in Cancer, isn't he? And this is one of the reasons why. So yeah, I kind of like that, really. And it's the time sort of for the insights, really, just to maybe spend some time in meditation, like to allow that watery, intuitive element to come in and just see what information it holds for you about tuning into your happiness and where that may lie. Because Mars is more than just fighting. He is our focus and our passion and our courage. So it's not just about what do you fight for, but it's all those things. So this gives us an insight into all of those, I think. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so. I think you nailed it.
So we've got Saturn square Venus, and that's happening on the 28th of October. And squares are of the nature of Mars, so we've got more of that Mars in Cancer energy coming through. Saturn is in Pisces retrograde, and this is a closing square. And we find Venus, she's in her own bound here in Sagittarius, and the moon's decan, and the sun's triplicity. And Saturn is in Jupiter's bound. We're here, Jupiter's decan, but in Venus's triplicity. Venus is going to oppose Jupiter. So, because of course, Jupiter's ruling that Saturn, or providing the tools, the bound will provide the tools that Saturn's working with, and the decan kind of tells the story that Saturn's operating within. So their conjunction was in Pisces at 12 Pisces, and that was in March 2024. And their opening square was from Gemini on the 8th of June. And they had an opposition on the 19th of August at 17 Virgo. And I think we spoke before about Saturn and Venus. It can bring pleasant relationships and quality time. It's about responsibility and commitment in relationships. It makes you think about solid working partnerships, blending of beauty and integrity. But there can be a shadow. Relationships can be tested and sometimes found wanting, which is the nature of life sometimes. If they're wanting, we've got to decide, do we move on, or are we willing to continue knowing that there's flaws in the relationship? It can be the burden of social responsibility, where we've got commitments that we haven't chosen. It can be loneliness and the fear of reaching out, feeling like a burden, questioning our appearance, not being happy with our appearance. And of course, the archetype that I have for this is the Jane Eyre. And of course, the appearance was very important because Jane Eyre always felt that she was plain and not good enough as a governess. And then Mr. Rochester, after the house burns down, he himself is damaged by the fire and ends up blind. But he always found her, she was always beautiful in his eyes because he was looking at her intelligence and her character. And that's what he found beautiful about her. And that's very much Saturn Venus, where she was questioning those things, but those things weren't important to him because he was taking a much longer view of the relationship and a much more rounded view beyond the initial Venusian appearance. So yeah, that's what I've got. What did you think, Shawna?
Yeah, with the Venus Saturn, I mean, it's is there a little bit of the maybe seeking security in relationships or lacking? It could be the lacking of security. It's a tension point in the square. You were talking about Jane Eyre, and it made me think not exactly the same, definitely not the same. Romeo and Juliet, like the whole star-crossed lovers kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even a near miss.
I've actually got that written down but I just felt Jane Eyre was like my choice.
Yeah.
It's another one that I wrote down, like the star-crossed lovers, that challenge that comes in Saturn testing. But you could also say like West Side Story as well, that story.
Yeah, it makes me think of like questions around financial security too. Entirely sure why, just that whole Venus Saturn.
Yeah. I know
Venus
like
bringing things together.
Really, yeah. Taurus can be the second sign, and that can bring out finances, and Venus can be like our security issues, which can be financial.
Right. Looks like we've just come out of a Moon Venus square too.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of mutable energy there because you've got the Moon in Virgo, Venus in Sagittarius. So they're still squared by whole sign, but it's flowing forth. So the significations are becoming clearer, and that's coming into that square with Saturn. That's very mutable. The mutable signs are affected. So you've got Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Gemini. So the moon is squaring Jupiter as well there.
That one's separating too.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information coming forward, isn't there, from that retrograde Jupiter that's informing everything that's going on in this chart.
Right.
Pass the parcel from Jupiter to the Moon, Venus to Saturn. Of course, Venus is the exaltation ruler of Saturn.
Yeah.
So on the 30th, we have Mercury in Scorpio opposite Uranus in Taurus. So here we have fixed earth to fixed water opposition. And Taurus is, well, they're both feminine signs. They're both receptive.
It's like a standoff.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it, when you get that opposition? And oppositions are of the nature of Saturn. So they're enduring in some way. They're, and there's conflict, kind of, some balancing of them wanting opposite different things. So the sun is still co-present in Scorpio with Mercury, and Mercury is trining ruler Mars. So Mars rules Scorpio, and we've got a nice trine there. Mercury is exact by degree, and the sun is in a whole sign trine. So it's nice there that Mars has got oversight of what's going on in Scorpio. Uranus, on the other hand, is averse to its ruler. It's got no sight of Venus in Sagittarius. Uranus is sextiling in a trine or a sextile from both to Pluto, from Mercury. It's a little bit wide, but it's there. And then we've got this really nice outers thing that's been going on most of the month of Pluto to Neptune are in a degree-based sextile, and then Neptune, Uranus are in a degree-based. I mean, it's wide to make this into a trine. They're 4 degrees apart to make Uranus and Pluto into a trine. But there's definitely those 2 sextiles linking these 3 outers together, which we don't see very often. But it's a nice signature, and it's noticeable when something like that happens, the communication between the 3 of them. So when one of our personal planets is making an aspect with one of them, it draws in this energy from the other 2, I feel, because Uranus is talking to Neptune, Neptune's talking to Pluto. So I feel like we're getting informed. Uranus as the disruptor, the awakener, the revolutionary, bringing those kind of significations of stirring something up. And of course, Uranus is retrograde at the moment. So we're going back over things that we were looking at before while Uranus was going direct through Taurus. And maybe having a more challenging time in fixed Earth. Again, not necessarily a comfortable place to be, but whatever it's shaking up is going to be lasting because it is fixed Earth. It's building something lasting, and maybe doing away with things that weren't permanent, weren't good enough, weren't lasting for us. So the dates I've got here, they were conjunct at 24 Taurus. So we see that Uranus has only moved, it's moving back towards that 24. But I think it got to 27 before it started retrograding. It had its opening square, or they had their opening square, Mercury and Uranus, in Leo at 26 degrees, and that was in July, and the 18th of August, and the 7th of September, because of the retrogrades. That was Mercury that was retrograding then. And then the closing square will be on the 10th of February 2025. We've got to wait until they make the closing square. So this is like the full moon moment of everything being revealed, a culmination, some sort of revelation and understanding of the story. The opening square would have been the adjustments, the initial idea of what the themes might be. Mercury now is out from under the beams. Yeah.
They're separated. Yeah.
So Mercury's visible now. So we're getting the information. So it's interesting that that time of insight and combination of stories and revelations is coming like close to the time that Mercury emerged from under the beams with the new story as well. And in Scorpio, it was interesting. So when the 2 come together, we might see things like lightning quick thinking, originality, inventiveness. It brings flexibility and maybe an openness to new ideas that you might have been closed to before, particularly in fixed signs where there's a resistance to new ideas and new ways of thinking. So especially with Mercury, you know, somebody who would never have considered, say, like using banking online or something, is suddenly willing to try it, that kind of thing. And maybe verbal play, using a sense of humor through the words, and intellectual breakthroughs, new understandings. The shadow side could be nervousness and restlessness, and sometimes overstimulation, too many thoughts and thinkings, and that can lead to erratic thoughts and processes. Think of like a thought spiral, like when you start train of thought and then it goes to places that you didn't expect, sort of those harebrained ideas, or excessive mental pride and stubbornness, which is a shadow of the fixed signs anyway. So watch out for that, because it's sort of baked in even more when these two planets come together. What do you think? What do you see here, Shawna?
Yeah, those ties to the outers. I wonder what kind of changes we'll see generationally. More openness. We've already seen a lot of things coming to the surface, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. And I just wonder, there's also that sextile that's happening to the Mars too. And so I wonder how much that's feeding in the closer Mars gets to that anaretic degree too. We're just hitting, what feels like the stale generational ideas, moving out of the way to open up for policies, different things to come to light, different ideas to surface. And in some ways, really, really old ideas coming back around, especially with Pluto at the anaretic degree.
I mean, old ideas can be, you've got Pluto opposite Mars there coming into aspect as well. So those ideas, you can be fighting for and against them, but they can also be under review with those outers that are all retrograde and brought up to date as well. Because this is coming very close to, when do you vote?
November.
Yeah. Is it
early November?
Early November. Yeah, it's interesting because,
yeah.
I mean, if you were to think what planet rules voting, I would probably say it would be Mercury, would you? Do we know? It's
That's a great question.
Although Jupiter's like democracy.
I was going to say I could see an argument for Jupiter.
But we have Jupiter in Mercury sign, so it kind of links the two at the moment anyway. So yeah, to see Mercury opposite there, Jupiter opposite Venus, quite interesting as we move into this time. Was there any more you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, so that concludes October 2024. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to my co-host, Shawna. Shawna, do you want to remind everybody where to find you?
Yeah, smartastro.com if you want to book or have questions. You can email me at smartastro@gmail.com. Available, same handle on Instagram and Twitter too, as well as Substack.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll be back in November with Krista from Practical Astros, and I'm Sonia from Celestial Astrology. And if you'd like to leave any comments, if you've got any questions, they're very welcome. Any feedback's very welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us for the weekly forecast. You often hear creators ask you, could you please like and subscribe? And I can't emphasize enough how important it is for small channels. It really does make the difference. And also we all want to reach the audience that our content is made for. And we can do this with your help if you've enjoyed it. It gives us immediate feedback on what you're enjoying and what you would like more of. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's a great way for you to support our work and just let us know that you're enjoying what we're doing. So if you have enjoyed this content through to the end and you'd like us to keep making it and make more of it, that's a great way for you to let us know. So wherever you're watching this, please do give us a thumbs up and give us your support. And we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.